Hi everyone and welcome to Priority Holder, and today we're doing another Dominaria United Sealed, and let's see what we open. And already this is looking pretty great. Archangel Wrath, super strong card. Been fortunate to play a few times. Drag to the bottom. Wraths are always really good when you can leverage them. Quarian Beastcaller, that's actually really strong. I haven't played much with it, but it's one to keep an eye on. Temporal Firestorm, very strong card. I've played against it many times, not with it very much. Also Ratadrabic, card I just can't seem to stop opening, or can't have always passed me in draft. And Leaf Crown Visionary is not really supported, so seeing some strong black-white cards in our rares, which is a great indicator. Now we look at everything collectively. So we do have a Wingmantle Chaplain, and we have at least one white defender. So it's something to pay attention to, like how many defenders we have, and basically also how many of the ones that can tutor creatures, But I think Wingmantle is a lot harder to make work in Sealed. We're just scanning over the colors, paying special attention to black and white because that's like our highest concentration of rares we'd like to play. Red looks pretty dead. Like Temporal Firestorm is basically the only card we'd want to play. There's other fine cards, that's the one we want to play. Green is looking very meh, like just not really, like just the Quarian Beastcaller is the main thing. And yeah, it's not really a huge standout for us. We do have three of the 4/6 Tree Folk though, so that actually makes like a domain thing sort of interesting. And we see a black-white uncommon to go with like our other good rares and stuff. So a lot of good options. Have a handful of lands, some other gold cards to consider. I think it's pronounced LS Ilkor. Okay, so going with the instincts first, that it seemed like we had strong black and white rares, reasonable black white cards. I've actually been pretty impressed with Heroes Heirloom. The equipment it's better than most equipment these days, and it gets additional upside with legendaries. So I'm doing now is putting the most powerful cards in black and white, tossing in Temporal Firestorm in there because we have actually a decent number of red touching tap lands. So putting in the Knights, putting in Cut Down, Repossession. Don't know if our lands really line up with that. But yeah, that's like the core of the black cards we'd love to play. So Destroy Evil's top of the list. Resolute Reinforcements is nice. Triple Benolosh Sleepers, great. Archangel, of course. Phalanx is great. Keeping an eye on Chaplain, but it just doesn't seem like we really have the foundation for that. And these other white cards that are remaining are not horrific, but they're not cards I usually go out of my way to play. So doing a quick check, 13 creatures, 6 non-creatures, so we'd love to have a couple more creatures in there, like 2 more creatures, and then fill out the rest with removal spells or whatever sort of combat tricks we can scrounge up. I'm also checking Drag to the bottom, so that is a domain card, and the question is it gives you +1 on whatever your domain is for its minus ability. So is it worth it to run a bunch of off-color, tap lands to power up our one domain card? And then I'm also looking at Artillery Blast. Like we'll probably be playing that, and that also benefits from domain. So the question is, how much do you torpedo your mana base to enable like just those 2 cards? And I've found I don't think you really want to go too crazy. Like they're good enough without going too wild towards domain. They're obviously better with more, but in this kind of deck where it's very streamlined, no sense running like blue and green tap lands, for example. It's all very context dependent. So I'm trying to be really choosy on what are the last cards. Looking at Semi-Herbalist. Fortunately, we have like a really low curve. Like when you have like a coherent deck like this, good mana base, a lot of low curve creatures, like you can just kill people off the bat. We have a lot of 3-power attackers. We have 2/2 menaces. Sometimes people just stumble with bad mana or slow hands. So now I'm really wanting to play Temporal Firestorm because I've seen how good it is. And we have some red touching lands, which we want for Archangel anyway. Just that double red is going to be real rough. Now, if you saw earlier, we actually have 2 copies of Salvaged Mana Worker. Those could go a long way towards making Temporal Firestorm work and possibly smoothing out our mana otherwise. The thing is, it's just sort of an underpowered creature, and it shines best in like the decks that have crazy color requirements. So like the decks that otherwise have low consistency but make up with it for their power level. And so I'm really wanting to play the Firestorm, have like a double Wrath deck with between that and Drag. So I initially put them in and thinking of going that direction. However, just the mana workers are just so underpowered, and they're only basically there to help cast 1 card for us. Seems like a bad idea. This seems, anyway, eventually come to the conclusion that I should not play Temporal Firestorm. So I'll get there eventually, because it's mostly because of how weak the mana workers are. We're playing these super weak cards to enable a strong card. Doesn't seem like the way we want to go. If the mana workers were helping us cast like 5 cards in our deck, that's a completely different story. So looking at, like those last couple choices, sort of agonizing over them. Now this is edited down. We're going to leap forward in time a couple of times, because I spent like over 20 minutes trying out, tinkering with different builds, and this pool was actually sort of difficult. So you can see me eventually come to the conclusion it's better to just play like a combat trick in the Semi-Herbalist and cut the Wrath. The question is what you'd replace with the Wrath. The black cards are basically like not that great. There's a couple like Battle Flies. Could potentially splash Molten Monstrosity off our red sources. So there is like, if you play 1 mountain in the 3 half red lands, like it just still seems way too tight to try and play a Temporal Firestorm. So this is the build I was initially leaning towards. But then for due diligence, I started tinkering with other combinations, because we have decent fixing. We have a lot of tap lands. We have 2 salvage mana workers. We can go ambitious. And so here's another one I looked at, just sort of like a rough draft domain deck with the 3 tree folks and like some other cards. So this allows us to play like more of our rares. And so considered that, then pivoted back to the black-white, considering that one. Trying like the Battle Flies in there for like Death Touch, but they just seem, I don't know, they seem very underwhelming and not really great with what we're trying to do. It's great if you can equip them, but they're honestly more defensive cards. Now then I took another crack at Domain, really thought about it more, and I thought this is about how I'd build it. Now I actually had the luxury of, my brother plays Arena. I saved this deck and played against one of his better draft decks from this set, just to try and get a feel for it before I played any games in this sealed. And it actually did quite well, and so it made the decision actually harder, because I thought surely this will just fall apart, but it did really well. So it made it real tough. Ultimately, this is the version I went with. You see an aggressive Sabotage and the Banalish Faith Bonder as like the tunable cards. Took out the Battle Flies and put both of those in. And so this is the list that I went to battle with, though I was really considering that Domain pile. But anyway, here's game 1. Had some server issues, as you could see. Was really worried about like a disconnect and like skipping a turn. Fortunately, connected right back on time. That would have been devastating with how great this hand looks. Basically perfect mana from the get-go. Mana worker from the opponent. We're just going to play a Knight and pass. Now we'll see what kind of ambitious, so we can already see the opponents on like some sort of domain pile. Phyrexian Espionage just on divination mode. And they're just gonna pass. Routed Drabic is real nice. Maybe we can apply some good pressure to them. So this is a great turn to play a tap land, play a 2-drop. We just have 2 Banalish Faith Bonders, so get our 2 damage in and pass. But next turn we could slam Ratadravik and hopefully start pressuring them. Coral, Colony, tap land, and pass. Okay, so play the Swamp pre-combat because we want to have as much pumping available as possible. So the Faith Bonder can't die, and the Knight must be double blocked. So I wanted to keep the mana open in case they try the double block, we can like pump. Anyway, they didn't opt for it, and so now we get to cast Ratadravik, which is like a fine card. Like it sometimes just gets outclassed by big creatures, but if they have small stuff, then like the ward on it and the vigilance just really is annoying. So they kick an Espionage, so they're like turbo card advantage over there. We just spin a Faith Bonder, like we're doing fine at the moment. But we have Hero's Heirloom, and that one, when equipped to Ratadravik, just sort of soups him up a lot. So attack with both and use the enlist function on Benalish Faith Bonder to grow its power beyond 3. And so like the bigger wall could block it, but opponent gets clapped for 5 damage there. And next turn we'll have our mana open to play with the Knight's like triggered ability. So the opponent's already sort of facing a lot of damage here. And it looks like a land and pass for them. So what do we do? A lot of options here. We have a removal spell in hand. We have Elas Ilkor, which is a good pre-combat play because if things start dying, we get some drain triggers. So the question, do we play like a pre-combat Phalanx here? Because right now it's discounted. If any of our creatures die, then all of a sudden we can't cast Phalanx. Decide to go with the solo Ratadravik attack, really hoping to cast the Phalanx. Okay, so opponent casts Prayer of Binding. We have a connection issue again. Thankfully it's resolved before our life gets ruined. Interestingly, they take the equipment. I thought they were going to snag the creature and then pay the ward, so they just get a clean block. We deny them their life gain with Knight, and because none of our creatures died, we still get to cast Phalanx. So opponents is in big trouble. Like they need to hit like Temporal Firestorm right here or something, because we have a removal spell in hand and 5 creatures in play. Not to mention, if they just kill our creatures, Elas Ilkor is going to drain them also. So, but opponent has a ton of mana. They play Soul Tender, mill a couple things. We see Danitha hit the bin, and we see Wing Mantle Chaplain. An excellent, strong turn from the opponent. So, how do you attack into this mess is the question. Decide to send in with Ratadravik and the Faith Bonder. Because this is where Enlist shines, because we can tap our huge power creature, and so essentially it's lending its power to like our more expendable creature. They have a pretty clean block with the Faith Bonder right there, and they set up a ton of blocks. They're just trying to survive right now. They're hoping to ride Wingmantle Chaplain with possibly other defenders in hand towards victory. So they're in full survival mode. Now we can't really blow out combat anyway, but we can kill the Chaplain and mow down most of their board. And so we lose a couple creatures. We get a couple sort of Blood Artist triggers. And we still have a decent threat to them. Opponent is not giving up though. Phyrexian Warhorse kicked. Tap land. Pass to us. So opponent has a lot of great stuff. We know there's Chaplain in their graveyard. They also have Danitha in there. So we attack this time with our 4/4. It's we can take out their Warhorse, so we're very okay with that. Get another death trigger. Question is, do we run out Archangel here and try and race them, or do we hold on to it? We're so close to being able to at least start kicking it. You can see me agonizing, oh, do I play the weaker Soul Tender that can't really get through, or do we play Archangel? opt for Soul Tender and just to hold on a bit longer, because it's just so much better if we can kick the Angel. And of course, we mill some lands that would have helped us kick it. Scanning the graveyard just to make sure we know what the contents of our deck, what things we will not be drawing. The opponent passes. Take up the Shield's actually really nice here. It allows the combat to be much more safe for us. Attack just with the Knight. So this is like a very safe situation for us because we can single pump, take down the Mana Worker. So opponent has the removal spell in response. Thankfully we didn't have to tap out because that allows us to save our creature. Now if we had anticipated that, it would have been much better to kill the Coral Colony. So like that would have been the next level thought, is knowing they were going to try and remove it. But then I guess they wouldn't have had the... Anyway, I think it worked out pretty good for us. So they Soul Tender back the Chaplain and then they hammer us with Drag to the bottom. So we get a couple death triggers on the way out. LS hits him down to 6. Wing Mantle Chaplain on an empty board. However, we have our own Drag to the bottom. It seems like an excellent time to use it right now. Just get rid of Wing Mantle Chaplain and the bird. Opponent has Urborg, Repossession, gets Wing Mantle back again, and Danitha. So here comes Danitha. I mean, we've already killed effectively 2 Chaplains, and so there's already another one in hand. Now, thankfully, we have Destroy Evil. It's just incredibly clutch right now, just a clean answer to Danitha, because that could absolutely take over this game. So opponent's deck is real stacked. We play Banal Sleeper, so we're not drawing any lands, but we're able to just keep double spelling, keeping us in this game. So opponent runs out Chaplain again. Now we're finally getting somewhere. So now we can activate 1 Kicker and Archangel. And that's going to allow... That's perfect here because it's going to clear the way of the 1/1 bird, which they'd surely throw in front of our Sleeper. Now Sleeper just gets to attack right through the Chaplain. And so opponent is in trouble here. Pass to us. It looks like, honestly, like they flooded out. We're not sure what their hand hole has inside it, but let's see what happens. Skyrider. Okay, so they're able to kick the Skyrider, dealing damage to our Angel, and that allows them to block and then kill the Angel. So we still have our Sleeper, but we also have Soul Tender to bring back Angel. So opponent is in huge trouble if they don't draw anything. It looks like they just sort of flooded out. So they're doing making us think we're dying to like some huge X-Spell or something. But we did it. We beat 3 Wing Mantle Chaplains and a Danitha. So not bad at all. On to the next one. Okay. Exchange greetings with our opponent. Faith Bonder, pass. And looks like we're going to do the same thing because it blocks their Faith Bonder. Our hand is just great right now. We got a Phyrexian Rager, Soul Tender, Banal Sleeper. A lot of good things going on. Alright, so they play Semi-Herbalist, pass. There's a question of attacking in. If they block with Semi-Herbalist, then we like use the Edict mode on Sleeper, but it just doesn't seem that profitable here. So we play the Soul Tender and pass. They Lightning Strike it down. We're very happy with that. It's an extremely expendable card, and it has graveyard value, so we're very happy to see them use removal on it. This does allow opponent to do a little tiny wombo combo of tapping the Herbalist without endangering it, plus making their Faith Bonder a 3/3 Vigilance. We're not super concerned though. Now notably we don't have double black for drag yet. We're able to play Phyrexian Rager. See where this game takes us. Another mountain. Keldon Flame Sage. Okay, so the opponent does the same trick again. Decide just to try for the double block. We could get blown out by a removal spell. Okay, so we draw another double black spell. That's a little unfortunate. Now, there is always the... you can't always run out Archangel without kicking it. 3/4 flying lifelink's not horrible. But what we do here is we play it on Edict mode, and that way we just have like a single blocker to the single attacker. But they have the Citizen's Arrest, so they get an attack in with the Flame Sage. Luckily its power's pretty low, so it's unlikely they hit anything that they can actually free cast off of it. So yeah, so they miss. That could be a problem though if they find something to enlist it with. Alright, we have a Billion Banalish Sleeper, so and we even have a backup one, so that's a really great draw. Just, we don't want any shenanigans to happen with the Flame Sage, like they find a pump spell and start chaining things together and kill us real quick. So very happy to Edict that away. Then they have Hurdler Cyclops. We finally find a black source. It is tapped. But we're happy just to toss out another sleeper. Opponent's getting tired of these sleepovers here. They're not having fun. But very happily get rid of their 5/4. So we're sitting pretty right here. We have tons of good cards in hand still. And the opponent then slams Joda's Codex, which is very powerful. They will have to commit a ton of mana to it because they're not like fully domained, but it seems like this is the time to run out Archangel because it seems like they're running out of gas and we got to get them dead somehow. So as it stands, the opponent's going to have to pour 3 mana in every time they want to activate Codex. Now they do have time. It will take Archangel a few turns to kill them, but it's going to help pad our life total a lot. Not only that, but unless they exile our Archangel, we're just going to get it back with Soul Tender, so we're at a very safe spot. We could play Phyrexian Vivisector and still have our Extinguish the Light up. Just a very great position that we're in. Okay, Fires of Victory. Sure, kills our Angel. We get to scry 1. Now, interesting, we have Take Up the Shield. I think about it for a bit and actually decide to keep it on top because I'm already planning on bringing back the Angel with the Faith Bonder. So it would be nice to be able to protect the Angel when it comes down again. So the opponent plays Sleeper. No kicker, they can't pay it. Mountain. Goblin Picker. Okay, so activate Faith Bonder, definitely bring back Archangel, and it makes you wonder, like, the opponent probably should have just held on to those creatures because it's just going to be an absolute massacre right now because we're going to activate both kickers. So I think that was a misplay from them. If they thought they just had to, if they thought we were just going to hold the Angel until they put some creatures out, we would have totally cast it with no if they had no creatures out, just directed the damage at them. So that's pretty tough. We get like a clean 2-for-1 right there, and with like a huge creature left behind. So they pour more mana into the Codex. Find a Semi-Herbalist. That can gain them tiny bits of life, but we're not concerned. The opponent blocks our Vivisector. We're going to get to scry. Happily scry the land to the bottom. We don't need it right now. Keeping the land, because there are discard... Well, I guess they probably won't be playing any discard spells. Probably could have safely played it. Joda's Codex. Drawbridge. That actually is extremely annoying because that can lock down the Angel and buy them a ton of time to keep digging for stuff with the Codex. So even though it's like, you know, a 1-mana card, we're definitely going to extinguish the Light that because we want to keep the pressure on them. Because they have the card draw engine, all they need is time, and we want to deny them that. Fortunately, draw another land, but we're very happy we have to take up the shield. Like, we can protect our Angel from a whole lot right now. Opponent fires up Codex again. And we got there. On to the next one. Nice thing about these 2-color low-curve decks is you have beautiful opening hands like this where you can just keep playing stuff. And so if opponents stumble, then we get them. However, we're going to find ourselves on the back foot. Noshova Brawler, already at 3 power. That is a problem. It's a very strong card. So they're just going to send him with that. Yeah, definitely no blocks. Could have been worse. They could have played like another tap land and boosted its power. Void Chip Prodigy. Sure. Now trying to figure out what to do. Thankfully I have multiple cards to play. Probably want to hold off on the sleeper till we can like... Because they would just sacrifice their 2/2. We don't want that to happen. So being mana efficient, we're going to play the Soul Tender. Alright, we see Ellis in our graveyard and 2 lands. Now the equipment should be pretty nice in this matchup. So they attack with both, decide to attempt to block the Brawler here. Okay, so the opponent has Shore Up. We're happy trading that card for our expendable Faith Bonder. So decide to hammer them with the discard spell here. Because the opponent was, it appears to be mana screwed, and so we're able to take 2, we take a Citizen's Arrest and the Merfolk that can like steal creatures, so that's a pretty massive hit. And we know we have ways to sort of try and deal with them a little bit. So we're going to be able to play creature, equipment, tap land. So we are playing with fire, like we're falling to low life. Maybe that discard was a little much. So they're going to send in again. Brawler is going to knock us down to 1. We get to scry. Destroy Evil, sure, yeah, that's going to be pretty good. Yeah, my Sojourner, so we'll happily destroy that evil. And then we can Edict away the Brawler, and they're not that many turns away from dying with our Knight, and it's like pump ability. Not to mention the equipment, so we took like a risky line, like letting our life fall this low. But we can kill them in like 2 turns, so they have to have an answer, and they have the game winner, Outrider, for the kill. So that one was tough. We definitely gambled a bit, took a very risky line. I don't know, maybe it wasn't advised, but it seemed like a decent play at the time. So we just run out the Faith Bonder, thinking we are going to get hit with like a Essence Scatter right there, but it's actually just Impulse. We'll play Cultivator. I mean, that can block our Faith Bonder, but we're fine trading mana that way. They opt not to. Now we are missing a black source. Otherwise we'd very happily play Soul Tender, so just run out another sleeper, keep the pressure on them. Opponent is on Gardener Tribal over there. And be able to take down one of our 3/1s. Okay. We find a black source. Now, unfortunately, we can't play Soul Tender and equip, so decide just to juice up our sleeper and attack them. We know green decks can make good use of the mana, so we're happy to sort of see one of those gardeners disappear. And the discard doesn't really hurt us because we have extra planes we definitely don't care about. But now we get to play the Soul Tender and equip it up. And see what we can do. Don't have any really juicy creatures, maybe the Knight, but to bring back with Soul Tender. Opponent fires off another Impulse. And then we see King Darien, which is a problem. So that thing must die, or else it's just going to make an entire army and pump them. And it's a huge problem. So we decide to, this is perfect time to fire off Drag to the bottom. We're going to get value again off the Soul Tender anyway, so happily fire off Drag to the bottom, hoping to take care of King Darien. But then the Nightmare scenario unfolds right here. They have Gaia's Might to outgrow Drag to the bottom. So now they have King Darien on an empty board. Really, really bad, because now they don't have to commit anything from their hand. They're just going to camp out on its activated ability and just make the army. So they decide to play something anyway, because there is merit in killing us fast before we can do anything about it. We draw a Faith Bonder, so like we can still put up a fight. We have a Death Toucher that's going to hold off some attacks, and we have the Faith Bonder, which we can then equip up to deter some things. So we're not in a good spot, but we bought ourselves some time. So they send in with the Serpent. I mean, that thing's hard for us to deal with anyway, so we'll happily cash in our Death Toucher for that. The problem is that King Darien can just keep camping, though they don't even need to. Like, they're playing whammies like Territorial Morrow, so a land right there is real tough. Could have used like a Destroy Evil or something. Sort of a Desperation Soul Tender to get LS and just have another, just to try and fend them off with another Death Toucher. But honestly, they could just send their giant creatures in while King Darien continues to do work. So we're trying to play the best we can, but it's all very desperate now, and they're just pulling ahead. And now it gets worse because they just found another white source, so they'll be able to start double activating Darien very soon. Starting now. White Cheaper Prodigy. It's interesting, like if I were in their position, I would just be only activating Darien and not really casting anything else. Just ride that card advantage from King Darien as long as you can. And we're flooding out at the worst possible time here. And then, oh, Joda's Codex. They're going to be able to draw a ton more cards. So, opponent's firing on all cylinders here. Like, we have already spewed off our Wrath. Like, there's... And not only that, but it wouldn't even take care of, like, the things we need to even take care of. So, it's... We're basically dead. We're playing it out for due diligence. But, yeah, we're not coming back from this. Lightning Strike. So now the Death Toucher's out of the way, and they're going to start killing us. So we have to chump the 11/11. And it's going to be an agonizing death. The opponent had the clutch Gaia's Might to get around our Wrath. And, you know, if King Darien was dead, this would be a completely different game. We'd still be in a lot of... Seeing the card quality that they have, like, we'd still be in big trouble. But yeah, it's game over. We get to see what else they had in hand. Just a couple random cards. We pass, and the end is near. So they just get them to have a billion creatures. So we're effectively dead right now, especially if they find a removal spell. So we pack it in. On to the next one. Okay, good looking hand. We could lead with Elas Ilkor, have Banalish Sleeper up. There's something to be said with having like a good curve, so that's like our deck's strongest attribute. So opponent must have misread Protecting Negotiators or thought it was an Essence Scatter, so they spew it off for no value there, which is real tough. They might have also had Essence Scatter in hand or in the deck and like thought they were playing that, so tough for them, but we take any advantage we can get. So we're able to play another creature and attack them. We'll see if the opponent can recover from that mistake. Land and pass. Okay, so Rona's Vortex, sure. So it's effectively just a removal spell. But that clears the way for Ratted Dravik. Its ward is going to be tough for them to deal with. So they play a Soul Tender. And that's honestly just a clean answer to Ratted Dravik, you know, in combat. Now we see Squee hit the graveyard and a red source, so it looks like they're sort of color screwed. Like blue might not even be like their main color. Hard to tell. We're able to fire off Banalish Sleeper's Edict, knock them down to 9. They play Sea Scavenger. A lot of 3-power blockers on their side, so it's going to make our Ratted Dravik a lot less good. Urborg Repossession to get the Soul Tender back, gain a little life. It's a very strong card even when you can't kick it. So we're preserving Ratted Dravik because of how strong it could be. Play Phyrexian Ranger. Decided to play the tap land just to be able to have more mana options next turn. And they play the Aether Channeler and use the draw card mode. They play Soul Tender, so they did find their mountain, so Squeeze can be coming back. They have plenty of cards in their graveyard, so it'd be trivial for them to use like the escape mode on Squee. So opponent's definitely not out of this. Maybe I was being too conservative with Ratted Dravik. I should have maybe just set it. But it's just such a clean block when they have like the Soul Tender out. So the Hero's Heirloom makes me glad that I was so cautious with Ratted Dravik, because now it's going to get juiced up and become a real problem for them. So they play the Drake. Lightning Strike down our Knight. Could be that they have some life gain they're trying to unlock. But the Knight is also just a huge problem with its on-demand pump. Another Urborg Repossession to get back their Channeler. So opponent has a lot of cool like little loops going on there. We've already seen that same Soul Tender twice. We're about to see the Channeler again. And Squee will never see the end of. However, we have a pretty nice little equip up right here. So opponent can double block at the cost of both their creatures in combat. So we will sort of happily take that trade right here, because that allows us to you know, whittle away their creatures and definitely scry that to the bottom, and then attach the Heirloom onto our Vivisector. So it's like a reasonable threat right here. We'll play the Channeler and see what mode they choose. They choose the bounce mode. So they're trying to buy themselves some time right here. We draw another swamp anyway. So we can like Soul Tender something back and cast it. Seems better just to play Vivisector, equip. The opponent has the Essence Scatter, so they're trying to turn the corner now, because if they deny us a blocker, that means Squee gets unopposed. So I sort of like that aggressive Essence Scatter on our Vivisector here, because they were gambling that we didn't have a backup creature, and they were correct. We did not have one. And so now they're getting free creatures and they're chopping our life total down. We would love to bring back like an Archangel of Wrath right here. Instead, Ratadrabik seems pretty good. Because that's the thing, is that the Heirloom grants haste to legendary creatures. Not only that, but Ratadrabik has Vigilance naturally, so we get to smack him for 5 and be left on defense with our ward safeguarding us. So that was a pretty good exchange. So Sandgear Connoisseur, the opponent can't attack us. So go ahead and lead with Knight to Shadow and pass. The Squee is actually a great blocker also, because they just block with it and then escape it again. They have a stocked graveyard, so now we're dying to the Sandgear Connoisseur. But at least now the Knight can attack. So send him with both, because the opponent is facing down a lot of damage. Like, so okay, so they throw everything at Ratadrabik. So Ratadrabik, as it stands, will trample 1 damage through. And the Knight can activate a couple times, so the 3 power, 4 power, and 5. So we can't actually like kill them here. So opt to deal as much as we can. So assuming nothing happens here, they're going to fall to 1. Sandgear is going to get a counter, which is nice because that actually unlocks Destroy Evil. So I was close. So that would have been a huge mistake here, firing off Destroy Evil. I was about to do it and then realized, no. They're at 1 life. We have reinforcements. There's a chance we can kill them if they don't play enough blockers. So, fortunately, it did not fire off Destroy Evil. I was considering here. Anyway, that would have been a huge mistake. Fires a victory with the kicker, so they're going to draw a card. Sure, that's fine. It's going to grow their Connoisseur. That's also fine. Right now, we want to kill them. So, 8th Channel. Let's see if they make the creature token. That would ruin our plan right now. We're waiting to see what they choose. No creature, and they choose draw a card. So now, so they don't attack because they're worried. You know, they've seen us haste out something already. So now we get to play reinforcements, and on our turn, destroy evil for the win. So what an awesome game! We're getting our money's worth with these games. Having to work hard and winning some, losing some, you know, just good clean magic. That's a win though. So we snap off this keep. No white sources in sight, but 3 black spells we can play. And there's the white source. So could hold back reinforcements. Just Knight is just so strong just to get out there and start getting them though. So we play it. Waiting. Goblin Picker, sure. The equipment's pretty nice. We're gonna have a lot of creatures to use it on. So we have to attack with Knight. Opt not to pump. That does really telegraph that we have something we're holding. But we're okay with that. So we could try and cast the reinforcements to double block, but there's a lot of combat tricks, and we honestly want creatures around for our heirloom to equip up. But they play an Iconoclast, so very happily cut that down. That's right at the edge of what we can deal with it. So we cut that down, play reinforcements, and we're feeling really good. Now the tap land, oh, that's tough, because we'd love to have that to play the kicker on our aggressive sabotage, but we got to equip up this turn. There's a complete shields down moment for them. We get to smack them for a lot of damage. They're already down to 12. It's not over yet though. Karn, Living Legacy.
Our victory will come together.
And this Planeswalker is not that great. They make a mistake right here. They should have plussed it. Anyway, it's easy to make this mistake because you're not used to having to pay mana to actually get something out of your Planeswalker activation. So they just minused for no value right there, which is real tough because that's going to allow us to easily kill it right here. So all it was for them was a damage sponge. Like I said, I don't really blame them for that mistake because Karn's a weird one. Like, you don't usually have to pay mana to do something with your Planeswalker activation. So he seems fairly weak because of that. So we're able to thankfully kill Karn right away before he gets any Karn advantage. Hero's Heirloom, pass. Okay, Linebreaker, Behemoth. Can't deal with our Menace creature. Aggressive Sabotage feels real nice here. No opponent probably needs like every single thing they have just to stay alive. So they still have a land to pitch, but we do get rid of one real spell. Move the Heirloom over, and we get to smack them for 4. So the opponent needs a blocker here or a removal spell or something, or else they're just donezo. Alright, so they play the Badger, pass, and we draw a Wrath. So we know this double block is happening. Unfortunately, we can't grow the Knight large enough to survive how much damage they're putting out on it. So we're simply just going to settle for killing the line breaker and then placing the equipment onto our 1/1. So just keeping the opponent under pressure. Holding on to that Wrath. Alright, they play a Steel Shaper, pass, land, not ideal. So I attack here knowing full well we could get blown out in combat by this exact play. So realized that was a possibility. We're happy just getting another creature off the board anyway, and we have some life to play with to hopefully draw something. Opponent smacks us for 3 and passes. Artillery Blast attacks us. Trying to decide, do we use it? Do we try and save it for something nastier? And then plays Elfheim Worm, which is a real nasty threat, but fortunately dies exactly to our little drag to the bottom setup here. Because we have 3 domain lands and it adds 1 on top of that. So get a very clean 2 for 1 here. Opponent draws a land. Phyrexian Rager is so clutch right here. We need all the cards we can get. So this is really nice. Because it can potentially close the game out. Okay, land is not helpful. But at least digs us closer to something real. Alright, we draw Knight. Knight is good for 2 reasons. 1, it's going to help close the game. 2, it's going to deny them any life gain they might have to try and stay alive. And that's it. Alright. So I snap off this keep right here. We do not have any black sources, which is a problem. But we have, plays, and we could always run out Archangel, with little to no kicker. Play Faith Bonder, and they hit us with the Essence Scatter. Honestly, not unhappy about that. Faith Bonder is like one of the worst cards in our deck. Still no black source, so try our hands at playing a 3-1. It resolves. So opponent had some priority passes going on there, so I'm not quite sure what's going on. The Coalition Warbrute is an issue. Let's see what I do here. I can't remember what I do. Okay, so I do run out the Angel here. Yeah, I was going to say, really hope I run out the Angel because, you know, depending on what they have, could end the game for us. Not this time, though. Battle him, takes it down right away. They smack us for 3. So that's unfortunate. But despite our color screw, we could still double spell this turn. So we get to play a Faith Bonder and a Sleeper. So, you know, not the worst situation despite having 3 black cards stranded in our hand. Karn, Living Legacy. Karn again. Okay. This time the opponent does have mana open, so they're able to effectively use it. So they're just going to pay 1 just to draw the top card. They don't need the selection. So now, this is where things get tough. So we want to kill Karn right away before it gets enough Karn advantage to take over this game. Thankfully, we can enlist the Faith Bonder high enough to get through the Warbrute and still have a pair of 3-1s left afterwards. So not the greatest situation, but we're still hanging on. And drawing a Plains there was just horrific. Like a Swamp would have been so good. Still cards trying to hand. And this is tough because like just a Swamp right there would have helped us apply enough pressure to shut down Karn right away. But then another Plains is just, I mean, that's how it goes sometimes. But very optimistic attack at Karn, hoping that it works. Please work. Nope. Flowstone Infusion. So this is the nightmare scenario. We have an empty board, and they have an unchecked Planeswalker over there. And basically every Planeswalker, no matter how quote-unquote weak, can take over the game if unopposed. So now, because they know we're not doing anything to them, they could sink a lot of more mana into Karn and start getting some good selection. So Hati Jin gets cast from them, and that's going to close the game in pretty short order. So there is an argument for playing a Rager here to try and draw more cards, but opt to play the Knight to just try and shut down Karn. So that Swamp is just it seems like 1 or 2 turns too late. So interesting, they just cash in Karn here. They're not interested in Power Stones. I mean, they've already drawn so many cards off it. Okay, that another flyer, especially one that pumps as efficiently as Balmor, is a problem. Here come the Swamps. Too little, too late. That will at least allow us to double spell now, but it's feeling pretty grim with how much card advantage plus selection the opponents had. So we're looking for something nice, like a removal spell. Okay, another Knight is pretty good. I mean, we'll see how well it does for us here. Play the Knight. We have 2 Knights. The problem is we just don't have any Swamps to really pump them. Alright, so they play a Fire Nado, taking down one other thing, get the power pump. Alright, so now there's 7 damage coming at us. An opponent casts Shore Up, getting another trigger, getting everything in the graveyard, boosting the Jin. And they have the whammy double strike off to Inferno, so we are dead. Yeah, so we're sad we didn't get more wins with this deck. Felt like I had good cards and good curve. But yeah, didn't get there quite. Still had, I think we got our money's worth, if not from currency back afterwards, from game and time played. We got a lot of long, grueling battles in there, and it was a lot of fun. I promise you, I'm not only playing black and white and sealed and draft in this format. It's just that's sort of where the cards have aligned each time. So, but yeah, thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.